You've probably noticed something. You sit down to meditate, close your eyes, and within about 15 seconds your mind is already somewhere else entirely. Replaying a conversation, planning tomorrow, worrying about something you said 3 days ago. You tell yourself you just need more practice, more discipline, a better technique. But what if the problem has almost nothing to do with what happens on the cushion? Here's what the research, and one of the oldest psychological frameworks in human history, both agree on. Your mind is not chaotic by nature. It becomes chaotic through a very specific process. Every time your senses make contact with something, a sound, an image, a notification, a memory, a feeling is immediately produced. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, that feeling, automatically and almost instantly, generates a reaction, a movement toward what feels good, a movement away from what feels bad. That movement is craving, and craving keeps the mind in a state of constant low-level restlessness. This chain, contact, feeling, craving, was mapped in extraordinary detail by a teacher in northern India around 500 BCE. And neuroscience is now describing the same loop using different words. Most people treat meditation as a separate activity, something that happens for 20 minutes, isolated from the rest of the day. But the mind you bring to the cushion is the mind you've been building all day long. Every scroll, every argument, every fantasy, every burst of outrage or comparison or anxiety, all of that has been training the nervous system to stay activated. To keep scanning, to keep reacting. Trying to switch that off the moment you close your eyes is like running a machine at full speed all day, then being surprised it doesn't immediately go quiet when you turn it off. The heat is still there. The momentum is still there. The framework I'm drawing from is the Pali Nikayas, the earliest surviving texts of Buddhist psychology. Not the rituals, not the metaphysics, the practical system for understanding and working with the mind. And what these texts describe is remarkably systematic. They don't start with breath. They start with lifestyle, with how you speak, what you consume, how you handle desire, what you repeatedly feed your attention to. Because all of those things are directly upstream of the quality of your mind during meditation. The technical term for this in the texts is sila, ethical conduct. But translate it more simply and it just means, are you creating more inner conflict or less? Because every action that generates guilt, regret, agitation, or shame is fuel that the mind will still be burning when you sit down to meditate. The texts identify 5 specific mental states that block deep focus. They call them hindrances, but a cleaner translation for our purposes might be focus killers. The first is sensual desire, not just physical craving, but any pulling of attention toward pleasant experience. The second is ill will, irritation, resentment, the burning quality of anger. The third is dullness, the foggy, heavy, low-energy state where awareness keeps collapsing. The fourth is restlessness, the agitated, spinning quality that can't settle on anything. And the fifth is doubt, the undermining voice that questions whether any of this is worth doing. The Buddha compared each of these to disturbed water, colored water, boiling water, covered in moss, wind-blown, muddy. In each case, you can't see clearly, not because there's something wrong with the water, but because it's disturbed. Here's the part most people miss completely. Deep focus, what the texts call samadhi, doesn't arrive through force. It arrives through joy. The Anguttara Nikaya describes a sequential chain. Ethical conduct leads to non-remorse. Non-remorse leads to gladness. Gladness leads to joy. Joy leads to tranquility. Tranquility leads to happiness. And happiness leads to samadhi. This is not a metaphor. It's a psychological mechanism. When the mind stops attacking itself, when guilt, conflict, and compulsive craving are reduced, an inward ease naturally appears. That ease becomes concentration. The mind doesn't need to be forced into stillness. It settles by itself when the disturbance is removed. You don't need a new technique. You need to stop adding fuel to the fire. Pick one thing this week. One source of stimulation you can reduce. Not eliminate, just reduce. Before your next meditation session, sit with that gap for 5 minutes. Notice whether the mind is different. Not because of what happened on the cushion, because of what you stopped feeding it before you even got there. The depth of focus you're looking for has always been possible. It was just hidden under a lot of noise you didn't realize you were generating.